Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Welcome to One Mic and Daily DVR's deep dive into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Today, we're here to be talking about the finale, Season 1, Episode 6, entitled One World, One People. Once again, by Kari Skoglund and written by Malcolm Spellman and Yosef Sawyer. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to the podcast, please do leave a like, subscribe, and write us a review. I'll do hand gestures along with it. Also, check out Mike's reaction to this episode on the One Mic channel, which we're going to be talking about today. My name is Axel. Of course, with me is Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Good, man. Ready to talk about this finale. Let's go.
Let's do it. And today we have a very special guest. Once again, we're happy to welcome Delvin Cox to the show. What's up, Delvin?
I'm doing good. I don't know how special I am, but I'm doing pretty good and excited to slander all these commentators who are talking trash about this in the finale.
Oh, damn. All right. Well, you're very special to us. And you're so special, actually.
Speak for yourself. I don't like them. No, I'm just kidding.
We are running it back. We're going to do this thing again. Delvin, Mike, and I are going to be covering Loki. So we're going to come back. It starts June 11th, which is actually my birthday. I'll be 47 years old, if you can believe it. So we will be doing the same thing. I think Mike said he's going to be doing an instant reaction, and then we'll join probably Sunday's good for me. We'll chat about it off the air. We'll record on Sunday. So it'll be kind of the same schedule, which I love and I think is going to be awesome. And having Delvin join the crew is just appropriate. I mean, this is a great crew we've got here. I'm really excited to talk about this episode, but just to kind of go on and continue our discussion of this comic book world. So that's awesome. And we're going to be giving away our prizes tonight. But we also have another piece of news before we do that, which I wanted to get both of your gentlemen's opinions on, which is that Malcolm Spellman and Dalan Musan, who wrote the last episode, who I also said most peculiarly, I should say, if I pronounce that at all, that he
It's a struggle.
It is a struggle. Right?
Yeah.
Only had written one episode of TV, and that was the last episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Then as soon as that episode dropped, a couple days later, they go, oh, guess what? They're writing Captain America 4. So I guess that's kind of like they figured, hey, why not, before we write the film together, let's write an episode of this series to get things going. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. I liked the episode. I think it's cool that they're bringing this dude in to work with Malcolm Spellman. All in all, I was happy with that. I think it will continue this story, and I think it totally makes sense. What did you think, Delvin?
My first thought was, why didn't they include that on the episode? Like, they knew they were making Captain America 4. How cool it would have been if you watched the credits, that 10-minute credit scene they have, and at the end, they just say, Sam Wilson will be returned in Captain America 4.
Yeah.
That would have been a perfect stinger for it.
Well,
As opposed to showing this little article right after it comes out, and it's like, hey, by the way, Captain America 4 is a thing. Like, oh, really? You could have made a bigger deal about it.
yeah, there was some people saying, well, they shot this before WandaVision, but come on, they can add a little credit title thing with a picture to the end of it. That's a good point. I had not thought about that, but you're right. It would be nice that that they had included that as a part of the show.
Yeah, it kind of just felt weird. Just like I don't even think it was after we watched the show, because me and Mike were talking about it like middle of the day. They're like, hey, by the way, Captain America 4 is coming out. I'm like, well, if you didn't watch the last episode, now that's kind of been spoiled for you now.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry, Delvin, you had something else?
No, you go ahead. 'Cause I know
Oh.
you want to say something about this too.
Yeah. So if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit concerned. Just because like I look at the Captain America franchise as not just the best franchise within the MCU, but one of the better franchises that we've gotten in film in general. Like those
Yes.
3 movies are fucking phenomenal. And people sleep on the first one, but I thought the first one was excellent too. So like, I feel like this is a franchise that has a very incredibly fucking high bar. And to shift it over and it's like, okay, now we're gonna put the black guy as the Captain America. And I want Anthony Mackie to get the same caliber of writing and directing that Chris Evans got. And I don't like it seems kind of, I don't know how I feel about the idea of like, hey, these guys wrote 1 episode, now they're going to direct your movie. Like, where the fuck are they going to, like, are they going to get the Russo brothers to direct it? I certainly hope so. I don't want it to be some first time director either, or second time director. I want the franchise and Anthony Mackie to be given the same amount of respect that Chris Evans was.
I have a hot take about that, by the way.
Let's
I've
hear
been
it.
thinking about this week. If you're not gonna bring the Russo brothers back, bring in Ryan Coogler. Let Ryan Coogler stop writing Black Panther 2, because obviously that's gonna be a problem. And just let him, for now, do the Wakanda series that's coming out and say, hey, why don't you write this Captain America trilogy with a Black Captain America? Think that could work?
That's a great idea. I like that.
I like it, but I also think there's a lot of young directors and a lot of older directors. I think there's a lot of people out there. They're too far into that, though, aren't they? Already going to start shooting Black Panther 2 because there was some question about whether they were going to pull it out of Georgia. Remember? So
And they were still in the process of shooting it, and they still don't know what they're going to do, because at one point they were saying they're going to. Well, I think they are. They're going to turn it into a series, because they still don't have an ideal of how they're going to
make
put the Chadwick part.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's an interesting point. I don't know, Mike. I think Malcolm Spellman has a good resume. The other dude is newer to this. Like I said, he had only written 1 film before, which was kind of cool. It had some interesting ideas in it. But I don't really feel, I think I'm willing to wait to hear who rounds out the production as far as director and everything goes. But I kind of liked it, actually, because I like when a person is given kind of like an auteur over it within this Disney-fied world. They're kind of saying to him, like they said to Coogler with Black Panther, like, you kind of take this, you know what I mean? Like, you do your thing and find your way within it. And I kind of like that. So I think it shows that they have faith in Spellman. And I am interested to see what director they get for it. I have some different ideas, but I'm not quite sure who they might get. It's hard to say. I mean, Marvel will really go after anyone. I don't know. You look like you had an idea, Delvin.
I have a far-fetched idea too, which I think is outside the box, but I think it'll be cool if they get him for just this 1 movie. What about Spike Lee?
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Especially if you're considering, if
Yeah,
you're going based off the comic books.
Oh, dude, I don't know. He's too independent. Like, to put him inside the confines of anyone else's world or anything is, I don't know if you can do that to Spike. He's too much of an artist, man.
This is my thing with it, and this is why I'm kind of leaning towards Spike Lee, because, and this is the problem that some people had with this episode.
Captain America, Spike Lee joint. Like, I just can't see it, man. It's fucking crazy.
This is the thing. And this is the territory we're in now with this situation, because I feel like a lot of people didn't get the social commentary behind Captain America. Well, at least this episode, and the fact that, hey, Captain America now, whether you like it or not, is Black. And with being Black, the social issues of being a Black person wearing that, holding that mantle, is going to come with it. And when I think about that, who better to kind of give that social commentary than Spike Lee?
I mean, I can't disagree in the fact that, I mean, I think Spike Lee is an amazing director. He's one of my favorites. Malcolm X is one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. I can't dispute. I just don't know whether or not he would have the desire at his age.
I don't think he'd do it, to be honest.
You know what I mean?
I think he like it because of the challenge, and it'll be like one of the first really big, with the exception of Black Panther, big superhero films with the main characters are African American. So that would probably pique his interest, but I don't know if he's Disney material in terms of like, hey, I'll follow y'all lead. No, Spike Lee. It's you're gonna do what I say you're gonna do. We're gonna do this my way, and if you can't do it my way, I don't need to be here.
I think, you know, what would be cool though is you could get that Spike Lee, that famous shot where he puts the person on the trailer and they just move. But this time it could be the shield, and the shield is like in space, right? And like you're moving with it. And
Oh boy.
it's the shoes. It ain't the shoes. I have a pick, and I think this is a little out there. But I think with his last film, I actually think it might be possible, which is Steve McQueen, the English director, Steve McQueen. I don't know if you guys are, you know, he directed 12.
He did. I would say he did 12 Years a Slave, right?
Shame, Widows, Small Axe, which was just on Hulu, I believe, with John Boyega. I mean, he's an amazing director, but Widows was functionally an action film.
I never saw Widows.
Me
That's
neither.
It's pretty good. And
I wanted to. I just never got to it.
yeah, it's kind of out there. But when he did Widows, I was kind of surprised. But then when I looked back at some of his earlier work in the UK, he did do like more kind of like street hustler type of stuff. So I think that like Gangs of London, which is a popular show that's out right now. But I think that he might be kind of an interesting pick for the
I kind of like that. I
do
kind of
too.
like that. My again, like my concern is less about putting somebody on it new because they're gonna fuck it up. It's more kind of like, you know, I like to see, you know, when you said like the example of Coogler, just like handing him this franchise and like, hey, do your thing. Like I agree with that aspect of that, and I'd like to see that for other but like this franchise already has its own thing already, and like I just want to make sure that it's gonna be tough because this is gonna be a really big fucking deal, like to transition this way from Chris Evans to Anthony Mackie, and I wanted to do the things that Delvin said that he would like Spike Lee to do for it. I'd like to see some of that, but then I also still like to see the regular kind of like stuff that I've come to expect from the Captain America franchise. And that's going to be a tough thing to kind of blend those two things together. And it's just such a huge task. And like to put writing it in the hands of someone that you said like they've had one writing credit before this. It's like, it just makes me feel a little, and then, I mean, and then also with this show in particular, like we have not shit on this show by any means, but I'm also not looking at this as like, oh man, this was a phenomenally written show. So I'm perfectly okay with this guy doing the movie on it. Because it, like, as far as the writing on this show has been, it's had its ups and downs, put it that way.
Yeah, I agree on that. All right, cool. Well, listen, let's get into the show. But before we do that, I do want to announce the winners of our cufflinks.com giveaways. And we're going to have more giveaways for Loki because I know Cufflinks always comes through. So we had items that I put my hand in a hat and I picked out all the names of the people who left comments on One Mic and on Facebook and who emailed us, and all great people like Joanne and Andy and Scott and Joe and Tim and Bill and so many other people. So the first thing we had was a set of Marvel Argyle socks. These are awesome, people. I have a set of Star Wars socks just like this. And we also have a very beautiful Falcon and Winter Soldier tie. Ooh, look.
That's dope.
Hi, I'm here for the office job. Ties, but I do like wearing ties at home sometimes though. Okay, so I have already picked out the names. I'm going to tell you who won. Okay. First off, the person who won this tie is a man who has a podcast himself.
Oh, it's
He's
me.
a podcaster. We knew him back in the day from Jay and Jack. He was not a huge fan of Falcon and Winter Soldier. He had some negative commentary on this show, but he was tough on it. He was tough.
Take that tie back.
So he's going to win it. It's Scott. Scott, you have won this tie. I don't know if you're listening or watching, but we'll make the announcement on Facebook. So Scott has won that tie. Congratulations. Now, who won this? It is a one mic fan, Joanne.
Yay, cool.
Of the Sox, baby.
Congratulations, Joanne.
So we have a person who came through us from our Facebook page, Scott, and Joanne, who came through us through one mic, winning our cufflinks.com prizes. Thank you, cufflinks.com. Now let's move on to the finale of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Now, Mike, we heard from you, your initial reaction. So I'm going to turn to Delvin first. What was your initial take when this episode ended? How did you feel? What was the first things you wanted to talk about?
I felt like the episode overall did what it needed to do. I thought it was really good. I would even go as far as great in terms of it got right to the drama. It got right to the action. Within the first 4 to 5 minutes, not only do you see the suit, but you see the suit in action. And that beginning shot where you see Falcon flying over the city, and then you see like the silhouette of him flying over the alleyway. I'm like, that is a pretty cool action. That feels like a Marvel comic book shot. And overall, that was, like I said, it was great. There was a lot of good action in it. Me and Mike talked about it offline. I feel like this show, when it comes to action, is hit or miss, but it's hit or miss because what it has to live up to. And what it has to live up to is the action that the Russo brothers did in the Captain America trilogy. So when you're watching this show, you're expecting that, but it's not going to be that because it's not the same directors. So it's a different direction, but it still overall feels good. I call them Cap now. The Cap fight scenes felt solid. Like this been said before, Bucky still feels nerfed, but he didn't feel as nerfed as he did in previous episodes with this episode. So overall, I enjoyed the episode a lot. I don't understand the hate that critics have given this episode. Fans are praising this episode. People are loving it, saying how much they love it and stuff like that, and how the suit looks. Comic book accurate suit looks great. And Anthony Mackie proving himself to be Captain America in this episode. Critics, not so much, but then I will have to say this, and I'll be honest about this. Sometimes critics aren't the dictators of what we love. So don't pay attention to critics and pay attention. Listen to the ones that you love, people that you trust, like the one mics, like the DVRs, like, don't.
Yeah, that's good. All right, man. Yeah, I
have a question for Delvin real quick. I'm sorry, Axel, cut you off. I wanted to ask Delvin this. Like, what have you been seeing negative from the critics? Because, and the reason I ask is because even if you are somebody who didn't particularly think this episode was all that great, like, these are 6 pretty even episodes. Like, it's not like you have, episode 1 is amazing, episode 2 sucked, episode 3 was middling. Like, they're all about the same level of quality. Like, I can't see somebody who liked the first 5 episodes watching this one and going, wow, what a piece of shit episode that was. Like, so like, I'm like, what are they saying? Because like, it's the show has been, if nothing else, it's been consistent.
Funny you should say that. I'm going to pull up one of the reviews right now that Fowler had sent to me. Like, this review can't even be accurate because it was so vastly different than what everybody's thoughts were. Give me 1 second. You guys can chat for me while you're looking at it.
I want to make one comment that Delvin brought up, which was the nerfing of Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one thing that we talked about when we originally talked about was that how his power was kind of tied to his own emotional state and his own like belief in himself. And one of the things I noticed in this episode was that when he's using the arm to try to open the door and he's trying harder and harder, and then he finally kind of he hears the people yelling and he really gets emotionally into it. I think there's actually a little bit of a look on his face of like kind of just feeling his struggle throughout. And then he opens the door. And then when he lets everybody out, one of the people says like, "Thank you so much. You're a hero." And he looks at them and he's like, "I'm a hero?" And then he proceeds to the next person who comes up to him. He throws him across the room like he did in Winter Soldier. So I do think that the quote unquote nerfing of Bucky, which totally happened, was tied to him not using his full strength because he was afraid to hurt someone and he was afraid to kill someone. And in the end, I really liked that. There was my biggest complaint of this whole season and this episode was I really liked everything about it. But the thing that got me was this really should have been called the Falcon. You know, like he didn't even really need to be called the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you know?
Yeah.
The Soldier could have just appeared in it. They could have cut a lot of Bucky's shit and it would not have affected this show at all.
Man, I was waiting to say the exact same thing.
And that's sad too, because I love Bucky, but that's okay in another sense that they were, I don't know. I almost feel like they may have announced this show without quite knowing what it was going to be. Like they got excited about it and they were like, "We need a new Captain America. So let's get people invested in a antagonistic kind of thing," that turns out to not be that at all. Because there was no point during this entire run that somebody said Bucky should be Captain America.
Not at all. Never came up.
Never even came up.
No. And I think
fight between them for the show.
I think the purpose of it, and I think they knew this the whole time, and this was the intent. And I don't know how one may perceive this if this is the case, but I feel like the goal after seeing the whole show, I feel like the goal the whole time was to use this as a vehicle to make Sam Captain America, and they didn't really feel like they could make the Falcon, like, and just be like, "Hey, let's make a Falcon show where we make Sam and the Captain America." I feel like they either felt like that wouldn't have played well enough, or they were looking at the chemistry that those two had in the films and were like, "We can use that chemistry as a way of getting people to check in on this show, which we are going to use to make Sam Captain America." So, but yeah, exactly what you said. Like, there's a lot of stuff with Bucky that didn't even need to be here, and the show would not change at all. Like, what was that? Oh, I think it was an episode of Big Bang Theory or something like that. I don't think you guys ever even watched that. But someone made a point that like the Indiana Jones movies would be the exact same without Indiana Jones in them. Like the Raiders of the Lost Ark would have played out the same if Indiana Jones hadn't been in it. And I haven't watched Raiders of the Lost Ark since hearing that, but like that's kind of how I looked at this. Like, yeah, like a lot of this wouldn't have been any different without Bucky.
Now you got me thinking about that now.
The Raiders, I'm like, think about it. I don't know. It's been
Raiders
a while.
Raiders kind of would have played out the same way. Now that I think about it.
I think that that's a question there, Mike, isn't it? Because from the perspective that the show has taken, confronting different things, I mean, especially like the racial inequities in our society or the way people deal with it as well, it makes you think, were they worried that they couldn't do just a Falcon show? But
probably so.
I don't know. You know,
I don't know.
It's hard to get into the corporate mind or whatever Disney is doing, because it seems to me, if I remember correctly, and looking through interviews, we might find out when they sat down to write the show, because they chose Malcolm Spellman for a reason. They must have known that Sam was going to end up with the shield, right? So they knew that it was going to be Sam focused. But the Bucky stuff just was not important to the show, and especially in this finale. He basically, tells Yoshi about his son, looks at them through a window, and that's it.
Yeah,
So did you guys think that was underwhelming too?
Yeah, it was so quick.
yeah, I do. I feel like that part was kind of rushed, and I feel like they just kind of wanted. Hey, it felt like we need to top this storyline before the show ends, as opposed to. And the problem with that Yoshi story is they should have touched on that a little bit more every episode. The fact that we just like got it in the first episode, then came back into it at the end, kind of didn't feel genuine.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of felt like he doesn't mention it to Sam at all. He doesn't mention his trouble with it. He just kind of like, we know he's dealing with it, but his friend, and people can say what they want to. They're friends. They're 100% friends. The animosity from the beginning of the show to the end of the show was almost not there. They were just being guys, and having that animosity towards each other because of they both lost a friend, essentially. They both lost their best friend. And now they kind of have to lean on each other. So when it comes to most of these storylines, I feel like most of them closed out, some of them better than others. The main one, which I think is the most important one to get right, was the Sam Wilson storyline. I think they got that one right. And I feel like they got the Isaiah Bradley storyline right in terms of, hey, Isaiah Bradley's still a cranky old man who does not trust the system. But at the end of the story, Sam did right by him.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he's just he's a guy with hurt feelings. I mean,
Yes.
like that's I don't want to minimize obviously spending 30 years in prison or anything like that. But like at the end of the day, there's a guy who all of his hatred, or even if it's not hatred, but however negativity that he feels, it's all based off the fact that I did this good thing and I was shit on for it. And they like you said, they did a great job with not just kind of like bringing that back around, but I think it helped add a little bit of context to Sam's decision to ultimately take the shield, and then it gave them the opportunity to do that wonderful scene with the memorial at the end, which was the best part of the episode to me. Like that was such a good scene, and that was a good scene, even though Axel almost kind of sort of spoiled it, like in the last one. Like you jokingly said something like something about him being in the museum or something like that, and then when they cut to it, I'm like, fuck, Axel kind of nailed it.
Yeah,
It's historical. It made sense. They had the scene with him and Don Cheadle in the museum.
And it
worked very well.
I noticed that, by the way. Well, listen,
you noticed what?
the Axel kind of nailed that scene, and it was two things that made me laugh out loud when I saw it. When I saw that, it's like Axel nailed that, and then when me and Mike last week were talking about Red Wing being in the updated Captain America suit, and then when I saw him pop out of the news, I'm like, holy crap, we nailed that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you remember I complained earlier in the season about the undramatic ending of the original Red Wing. Like, y'all ain't gonna make a bigger deal out of this. So, I wanted to make a point that Axel kind of talked about a little bit when he talked about tying the memorial scene at the end of this episode to the scene with Don Cheadle in the first episode, and I think that's why I found the wrapping up of the Yoshi storyline to be underwhelming. It's because like when I look at shows like this, or shows period, I kind of look at like why was this here? So like, when I saw the scene of well, not the scene, but the whole part of the story in the first episode with him talking to Yoshi and us finding out that he killed the son and when he was the winner, so all that kind of stuff, right? Why is this here? So for me, I'm looking at it like they showed me this because this is going to come back around at some point later, and it's going to have this seemingly irrelevant story is going to tie back into the main storyline at some point somehow. And like that's just kind of like how that's just what I pick up on based upon just how many shows and movies I've watched, what I've come to like expect and what I generally see. And for that storyline, it's my fault. Maybe I built it up to something more than it was, but like, I don't know. I expected it to I mean, it did come back around. It did tie in, but it was like it felt like such an afterthought, like a post-credit scene or something. Like, oh yeah, you remember this from the first episode? Yeah, let's go talk to him real quick. End credits, and it's like, oh man, like I thought that was gonna be a much bigger deal. Like I felt like that was an opportunity from episode 1. I'm like, this is an opportunity for a great moment between these two whenever this situation gets resolved. Like I think it's going to be a whole thing where the dad's going to be pissed off and they're going to be at odds for a little bit and then they're going to reconcile. Like I think it's going to be a whole thing. And it was all of that time they spent on that in the first episode with the whole date, all that kind of stuff, all for that fucking like 45-second. Just like, oh yeah, you remember this? Now we're going to close this out. That was really disappointing to me.
You know what I would have liked that they would have did? If they would have did the exact opposite of Civil War in terms of when Iron Man found out that Winter Soldier killed his mom and dad, he flipped out and lost it. I felt like they could have did a great scene where Yoshi kind of just like, you know what? I forgive you. I know everything is fucked up. I'm happy you told me. I forgive you. Let's move on.
Yeah,
I want that closure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wanted more, like maybe he hugs him and they cry. And
yeah.
Looking through the window at them, he's at the bar with them, and we get some sense of a completion here, that there's a reason why Bucky went through this, because he's still on the outside looking in at the end of this. It's as though we have not seen this journey that we want to see in characters on a TV show, right? Like that's the arc. And we're not seeing that arc. It's like it got here and then it kind of went back here, but it's just a little happier. You know what I like? He's still at the same space. So the Buck leaving the notebook on his therapist's desk was a nice little touch, but I also was a little annoyed at that because I was like, wasn't that Steve's notebook too? Yeah. Museum or something. Like, don't give it to that grouchy lady, even though I love Bosch. It was off. I could only hope that it's like Bucky is tied to Captain America, whoever Captain America is. And at some point, I do want to see him on his own, right? Like
somebody made a joke about that too, by the way.
What's that?
Somebody made a funny joke about that on Twitter, saying that they showed a picture of Bucky and Steve Rogers together as Captain America. Then they showed a picture of Bucky and Sam Wilson as Captain America, and says Bucky has the type.
It's true though, right? It's true. Bucky's the gimp. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
He even got the leather, you know? I mean, come on. It's just
oh man.
Just strike out on his own. He really does. Hey, Delvin, did you find some of those negative comments? Because we were gonna.
I did.
Oh yeah.
I'll read one of the. I don't want to name the company who did the review, but they were saying, I don't want to read this whole thing, but it's a lot. It says, unfortunately, everything around the core storyline is a mess of rushed conclusions, which denies other characters the depth or exploration they equally deserve. This ultimately makes for a deeply unsatisfying conclusion to what otherwise have been a fascinating and thoughtful examination of how the MCU deals with the world's hardest issues. That is a 5 review.
Wow. What do you mean a 5?
5 out of 10. Mediocre.
Oh wow. Okay. I mean, to a degree that is accurate, because that's exactly what we just said happened with the with the Yoshi storyline. But I don't feel like that was across the board a thing where it's like characters were underserved. Especially if we're talking about this specific episode. Yes. Like I said, the show has been, if nothing else, has been consistent in quality. And I don't see how you can look at this and be like, hey, all of a sudden I feel like everybody was underserved. Like, okay, yeah, we mentioned earlier about Bucky, and then now this thing with Yoshi, but I don't know. I don't see this episode being somehow markedly worse than the other ones. Like that just seems very strange to me.
And to kind of touch on the opposite side of that spectrum, I feel like John Walker was served very well in this episode in terms of somebody who, not saying he's likable now, but you can see the arc of this character who started off kind of being this kind of arrogant character who like, I'm Captain America, things are gonna be done my way. But his arrogance kind of hid his lack of confidence in himself holding that mantle.
Mm-hmm.
Then going forth and losing his best friend. Then coming to this episode, finding out that the person who killed his best friend felt like his best friend didn't even matter. And then when push came to shove, even with that Kmart shield he had, he had a choice to make whether he can be a spirit of vengeance, a la Ghost Rider, or do the right thing and save people. And he, even though he willfully wasn't able to do it by himself, he made the right choice of like, you know what? I'll put my anger aside to do the right thing. And that's something that shows a lot of character with him, because he kind of went out. His whole mission when he came back to that area was to kill the person who killed his friend. He did not have any other ideal on his head or whatsoever. He wasn't about for justice or nothing like that. He wanted pure revenge. And he left that situation being a hero. Now, was it the hero that we needed or wanted? No, but he left out that situation being better for it and not killing Carly, which he initially went out there to do.
Now, where do they take him now, though? Because, like, you know, in the episode, we see Julia Louis-Dreyfus again, and she gives him the the fancy new suit, quote unquote. It's just a different color scheme, and he's totally hype about this, right? Like, yeah, new suit, cool. And they spent a lot of time in this episode kind of trying to give him like a face turn, but I don't know about you. I don't feel like that's the direction they want to keep him in.
I know exactly where he goes, in my opinion, what I think he's going to do. He's essentially going to be the U.S. version of the Winter Soldier, quote unquote. All the co-op missions that they don't want people to know about, and the dirty stuff, he's going to be doing.
That's what I think too, which was why it's interesting to me that they had this character be just a complete and total heel for the entire series until that one moment, like in this episode when he's not, and then we're gonna take him back there probably. I don't know. That just seemed odd to have him be good for a moment.
This is the interesting thing about it. We don't necessarily know if Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character is a good guy or a bad guy. I feel like she's more in the gray area. Like even when she said the thing about, oh, Zemo blew up the last super soldiers. Pity. It was a good thing, but it was a pity. She said that kind of like, yeah, the people I work for had a hand in that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what you mean, like in a, see, to me that was I took that as her firmly being a bad guy.
Yes.
Like she, oh, okay, you said we didn't know if she was gonna be a good or bad guy.
I feel like she's in the gray area. Like she's doing what's good for the people that she works for. And
okay.
Yes, they may work for the U.S. government, but we don't know, especially with the whole Winter Soldier thing where S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra and Hydra was S.H.I.E.L.D. They was all melt together. We don't know what she necessarily thinks is the good of the government. They may be good.
I get what you're saying now. I get the distinction you're making.
Yeah, definitely. But I was gonna say, Mike, I think this is like in the beginning when I kind of liked John Walker, and it was because of the actor and because of other stuff he had been in. But that's why I gave him the benefit of the doubt in the first scene when especially that scene when he's there with his wife before Good Morning America, when we really learn about him.
Mm-hmm.
In the conversations that he has with Lamar, you see a man who is somewhat suffering from maybe PTSD from his experiences in Afghanistan. They talk about that day where everything could have went where it went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that connection that is also mentioned with Sam, where like, come on, we've got to get our heads back together. I know how tough it is to be a soldier. So I thought that it was weird jumping around the courtroom when he's like, I'm back, baby. I'm back. Like that was a little weird after you just killed a motherfucker in front of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I did kind of like his journey because I think I think both he and Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character do represent this gray area where, and almost the same thing with Sharon as the power broker,
Yes.
talk about. I like when Marvel does that. And when some of the complaints that people have had, and like what Delvin read, and I don't know, man, it's just like,
Nitpicky.
yes, when we started, and I also think it's judging something from a different framework. This isn't Watchmen. This isn't Damon Lindelof's Watchmen, where he has some crazy high-minded like auteur vision for this superhero thing. This isn't The Dark Knight, where Christopher Nolan is like, jacking off to freaking different film sizes and stuff like that. Okay. This is a more generalized story. It's a superhero moral tale, right? It is in many ways allegory for what's going on in the world today. And I think that those that drill down so deeply into it like that are kind of missing the point that the people creating it are, in a sense, they're making, and I don't want to say it bad because I really enjoyed this show, but more McDonald's than they are making their own personal homemade recipe. You know what I mean? It's a mix. And when you do that, you do have to appeal to a wider audience, and you do have to deal with larger themes rather than drilling down into individual characters where we spend an entire episode of Bucky grappling with killing people while he was a super soldier being controlled by word. So I would have liked a little bit more of Bucky, but I'm not mad at them. Like, I still liked what we got, and I still thought what they did was interesting. And if we have the opportunity to return to Yoshi or the girl at the bar whose name I can't remember, or that situation, great. If we jump back into the next big war or something, and Bucky is there, or Winter Soldier, whoever he is, and he shows up and he redefines himself through that, I'm cool with that too. So generally, I just want to quickly run through some of the feedback if I can. Garrett said had a few good beats and some positive messages, but he was a little underwhelmed. Still enjoyed it, need to process it. Andy agreed mostly with Mike, but enjoyed the series. Scott was very, he was not a big fan of this series.
What is it? What did he have? What did we have anything with his issues? Like, what didn't he like about it?
I got tied back.
Said what'd you say, Delvin?
He said, take that tie back.
I'm gonna take it back. Here you go. Snap. Well, I mean, he wrote a lot on it, but I would have to say Scott knows what he's talking about, and I think what it is I think he was bothered by the things I think we forgive, and I think a lot of these critics, it's like you said, Delvin, you can't sit and watch The Wire and then this and use the same lens for it, right? You have to change your lens.
I will give you a better example. You can't watch WandaVision, then this.
Yeah, that's true. They're different shows, and you have to see what they were going for. And for this, it primarily was action. You're learning about people through these scenes, through the decisions that they make in the heat of battle and stuff. And overall, I thought it achieved that. But just to say, what Scott had to say was basically about the characterization and the depth to it. And he felt it wasn't very deep. And at many points, I could agree with him. We could probably do a pod and chat about it with him. But overall, I'm more on I think we all agree. I watched the first half hours like an action scene.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I loved it.
It's like a mini Marvel movie.
Yeah, I was riveted from the beginning. I was like, I'm in, baby. And then some things I was disappointed about, but generally speaking, for Marvel and what they've done over all these films, they are learning how to get deeper into the characters, and this is another positive step. It's not the end. It's not the best series ever, but it's another positive step towards learning how to get more in depth with these characters while still including all the cool shit that we love.
I'm gonna give one of the highest praises I can give for this show, as opposed to something else. I'm one of the people who watched WandaVision and liked WandaVision a lot. I know Mike was mixed on it and things like that. That being said, I would not watch WandaVision again. I would 100% on a day when I have nothing to do, watch the whole Falcon and Winter Soldier again.
Yeah.
Because it's that kind of show. And I think that's the vast difference between these shows. WandaVision feels like something that you can watch once and like, okay, that was cool for the moment. But once you get the trick about the show and you get that vibe for the show, you're like, okay, I'm done. I see what I need to see with the show. I can move on. This show, much like The Mandalorian for that matter, I can go back and watch both of those shows over and over again. Like, oh yeah, just for the action sequences and the fun little banter and things like that. And I think that's important to me. Rewatchability is very important to me. Just going back and like getting back into that world for a few episodes, especially since it's short. It's only 6 episodes. So I can see myself easily getting back in the 6 months down the line and saying, let me just watch Falcon and Winter Soldier again and getting the feel for it, as opposed to shows like WandaVision. And that's high praise, in my opinion.
I think also I have to stand up for some people who don't get a lot of praise in film production, who are stuntmen, who are SFX people, stuntmen and women, SFX people, just the vehicle wranglers, the costume design. Like, we love to talk about premiere TV based upon the depth or artistic innovation we see. But we often forget that some of the action scenes in this show are the best that have ever been in a TV show. You know what I mean? This is at levels of film. It's like when people would shit on Game of Thrones, and I would say, okay, you might not like the dialogue that came out of the person's mouth, but did you see that fucking dragon behind them? That looked real.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago, that's not what 5 years ago, that's not what TV looked like. So I'm okay as a viewer and as a kind of a critic to say, okay, we can level out here. And this show may have not had at like all the emotional depth that I've wanted out of certain characters, but the quality of the production is amazing. I keep on thinking back on that little walk through the German countryside that Sam and Bucky had in, like, what was that, episode 3, when they're just hanging out, and that was just gorgeous. Like, that looked beautiful. And I mean, I don't know, I could go on and on, but I can see other people's points. So people like Scott and other critics, hell, I used to be one of them, and I think I used to look down on these productions, but now I really let myself be taken away and have fun with them. And that's a big thing too. You know, I had a lot of fun. Let me ask you guys this. Mike, what did you think of Sharon being the power broker? I don't think we've addressed it directly yet.
No. Well, for me, it was, it was a underwhelming reveal because it was something that I theorized episode 2, I think. So, it was just, coming to light, something that I already had known. And I was thinking about that actually before we started recording, how that might have hit for people who don't put the amount of effort that the three of us put into just putting a magnifying glass on the content that we consume. And I'm curious how that reveal would have hit for someone who was not only didn't see it coming, but like wasn't even trying to figure out who the power broker was. Like, because that's one of those situations where it's just like, for me, I spent so much time like looking at it through a magnifying glass, and I'm just like, okay, oh, they're trying to tell me the power broker is somebody important. Oh, who's the power broker then? Oh, man, it must be, you get into that theorizing, and yeah, it's like you want to be right or do you want to be surprised? And I personally, fortunately for me, I enjoy very much being right. But it was a unsurprising reveal for obvious reasons. But I really like that direction. I like and because also I don't even think that this is a surface level kind of reveal where we're just looking like, oh, Sharon is a bad guy now. Oh man, like I feel like there's something deeper than that. Like she might actually still be a good guy. Like she could be, working for someone else. Fuck, that might not even be Sharon.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay, because I'm like that could be a scroll, like because I keep thinking about the Secret Invasion and stuff like that. Like that might not even be Sharon. So like there's so many cool things that they can take that, and I like the fact that they were willing to take a character who was put in the most positive light the last time we saw her. Like, oh, this is Steve Rogers' love interest. Like this is like someone. This is an important, good character, and to take her and go like let's make her the bad guy. And even if you are somebody who looks at the power broker situation kind of like the same way, the Flag Smashers have a interesting perspective on how to do things. If you're somebody who looks at the power broker, somebody who's like, oh, maybe this isn't all that bad of a guy or something like that, they gave you that. I really liked the added thing at the end after she got her job back and she's walking out on the phone like, we might be out of super soldier serum, but guess what, I can get you now. Like government secrets. Oh, I'm like, oh man, like I really like that, the decision to take it in that direction. And even still being able to sit here and go, we don't even know if that's actually Sharon. We don't even know if she's got some double, triple fucking plan. Like, so I think the direction is great. I like the fact that I like the added scene at the end with her, getting reinstated and getting her pardon, getting her job back and hopping on the phone with, because now I get to theorize, who was she on the phone with? So like, yeah, there's a whole lot of positive ways they can take this. So I thought it was a pretty wise move on their part to actually have it be Sharon, even more so than I thought it was at the time that I guessed it. I was just kind of like, oh, this would be cool, but it's even cooler now that it's happened.
Yeah, I dug it. I really dug it. I thought it was cool. I think it works. I think it works for her history in the MCU. I think that she is awesome. I like to see her again. Like you said, I like the idea that we don't know who she's talking to. Is she working for the Contessa? Are they working together? Is there another person? I like all that. I didn't need there to be a complete resolution to all of this because that's what the MCU is. It continues. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a problem with it. I still thought it would be cool if it was Yoshi's son in some way, or they're working together. It still might be.
They clearly didn't give a fuck about that part though.
Like, care at all.
Here's a real quick prediction. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Axel.
Good. That's all I had to say.
Oh, I was gonna say real quick prediction. I'm guessing that she is talking to Nick Fury.
Ooh,
that's a good prediction. I like that.
I like that very much. That's very cool. How about you, Delvin?
I thought it was good. I thought it was cool. I'm happy. It was predictable, but it made sense, as opposed to Ralph Boner. You know what I mean? Like, I like when you put those little threads out there and they come back together. Like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. It's not out of the ordinary. It's not ridiculous. Why wouldn't she be the power broker? This is somebody who worked with the Avengers on a close strategic level. Why wouldn't she go into the regular world and be able to just dominate stuff? And then going into knowing that information, I'm very interested to see where they take it at, how far they go with it. Is she a Skrull? Is she not a Skrull? Is she bad? Is she in this gray area of this special ops? Maybe she's working for Nick Fury. Maybe she's not. Who else could they bring into this power broker situation to make it more cooler? And I like how only thing I didn't like about that part is like Batroc. And I'll tell you why. We saw Batroc in the first episode, in this episode, come on, and even in the Winter Soldier, come off like a complete badass. To get to this one scene where they're in this dark hall, he just gets shot, and that's it. He just gets taken out like that. I'm like, damn, really? He done did all this leaping and cool fighting, and Sharon just shoots him one time, and apparently he's dead? Like, come on, man. Like, we could have gave him a better ending than that. I hope that's not the last we see of Batroc, but if it is, I'm like, come on, man. That's corny.
I think we'll see him again, Del. I agree. I think that to me had all the earmarks of, oh, that was so quick. We're definitely seeing him again. Like that. because that's kind of his thing. He pops up, and I think he's a pop-up guy, and he's going to pop up again. Overall, okay. I think we all agree about the Sharon thing. I think it does lead to a whole host of other cool espionage, spy, weird stuff. And I love the Nick Fury idea. I think that's really cool. Because the last time we saw him, he's on the moon. He's right. He's hanging out
with scrolls.
With scrolls. That's why I said like she might be a scroll. That might be a scroll that's working for Nick Fury.
I like it because now Nick Fury doesn't trust anybody, right? And I think that I think that that's a cool idea for Nick to be out on his own, being like, you're not gonna fool me twice. Get the fucking snakes. I love. All right, let's get to Sam. We've talked a lot about. Let's talk about Sam's whole journey here. And I mean, we have the suit, the speech. I have to say, there's been a lot of talk about the suit. I know that it's comic accurate. I have to say, I was a little disappointed. The reason why is because I wanted them to jump and it to be more like an Iron Man, Captain America, Falcon suit. I wanted more like it looked a little puffy to me. Just the actual construction of it didn't look so solid. The wings were awesome and what he was able to do with them and the cool shit he did. But for me, I'm not a huge fan, and he's not the first superhero to have the kind of half head thing going on around the ears. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just have to say I was a little let down by the suit. He was great. The acting was great. The CGI was great, but just the suit itself was a little lacking to me. I wanted it to be a little more Iron Man-ish. I thought they were going to bring it all the way up to that and surprise us. And he was going to do like the shield was going to come down and he was going to be like, because I want him to be more, I guess I want him to have powers in some way, or I'm always worried about him. Like when he gets punched, I'm like, he's just a dude. I don't know. I was let down. I have to admit, I was let down. He wore it well, but I wish it didn't look so puffy to me. It looked I don't know how to describe it. Just looked like somebody made it at home a little bit. Like there was a little cotton, like when you touched it, it's soft.
I think that's because of the color of the suit. Because Captain America's first suit is very similar in terms of the material, but it's a darker color.
Yeah.
So it's not as pronounced. And when you see it in white, you can see all the kind of puffiness in the suit.
Yeah.
So I can see what you see about that.
Yeah, I fall not quite as far as Axel does, but like I made the same note. Like but I didn't have expectations for what it would look like. So I wasn't thinking like, oh, I wanted some kind of Iron Man thing. I didn't have any kind of expectation or desire. I expected it to look the way it did, like visually by design, and it did, and that's fine. But I also noted, I'm like, why does he look so like bulky in it? I noted that too. So I do wish it looked a little bit sleeker. I feel like my favorite is the way they had Cap in Winter Soldier. Like it was a darker suit, but like the fit of it and the look of it was like super badass. So I was hoping something for like a little bit more in that vein as far as like the appearance and the fit, but like the colors of it, the design of it, all that was like you said, comic book accurate. That's kind of what I expected. Just with, obviously a little bit updated kind of looking version of it. But yeah, I noted that too. I was like, it looks a little bulky to me.
Yeah, I noticed that. I like the suit a lot, honestly. I like that it looks like the comic books. And when you have, I feel like Marvel does so many kind of like, all right, we're not going to give you exactly the comic book suit. We're going to give you just good enough. And to see them get so far to like, no, we're going to give you the comic book suit for this one. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And I like the fact that the wings are a lot more durable. I think me and Mike talked about it before like last week we talked about, had that conversation, like, hey, them wings get tore up a lot. And the fact that like first back when you see him in action, you see a helicopter hit the wings, and it's like, well, that didn't do anything to the wings. Like, oh, okay, like these wings are a lot stronger than the ones he had before. I think that's pretty cool. The way he moves with them, the thrusters in the back that are kind of gives him kind of this almost a power boost in terms of like how now he can lift up a truck. Like, okay, that's pretty cool. If you push the boosters on and stuff like that, so he's kind of a little bit stronger, but not really. It's because of the boosters on the suit kind of gives him a little bit more of an edge. It gives him a little bit more power to him. So while he's not as strong as Cap, he has a little bit of boosted power.
Did you make that connection, Delvin or Axel as well? And I don't know if this, I assume this was intentional, but this is the connection that I made. But in that scene where he powers up the lifts back up that truck that was teetering off the side of that building, like that scene very closely aligns with the helicopter scene in Winter Soldier, and like that, like to me, exact same scene, same scene, just with different. Well, I'm not gonna insult your intelligence by explaining the difference. You know how they're different, but yeah.
Cycle thing.
I think
they did a couple of callbacks through action in this episode that I thought were really cool. And I have to agree with you guys. I love the wing part. I'll say it again. I just wish that the wings were the whole outfit, I loved everything they added. I liked the way that he was
maneuvering.
Like to be maneuvering and just in tune with the suit. You know what I mean? And it was scraping on walls and doing all and when he went down into the water and he shot back out and you could see the lights coming. The action was amazing. I don't have anything. I mean, it would just be me for half an hour going, that was cool.
The suit feels a lot more powerful. Like it can go underwater now and it can speed through water. It can go through flight and flies faster. It moves better. It gives him more fighting ability, apparently. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool and it works for the character. It's like, hey, we know Sam Wilson isn't strong as Captain America, but he could do some few cool things as well as just a regular human in this suit that's kind of specifically made for him. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I like when it wraps around him and envelops him because I also almost feel like the suit is like almost like a ship. Like if he went far enough into space, it could like wrap around him and he could be like, I got my own spaceship. You know what I mean? Like he's flying around or something. I love that aspect of it. I just even wanted to, and we'll see more as time goes on. But really, for me, it was just the puffiness. Everything else I thought was pretty awesome. He did seem stronger. Mike, I have to agree with you. The fight with Batroc was, in comparison to calling it back to the Captain America fight, was just not there. It just seemed a little rushed, and but it was also a bit like Sam getting used to still like this whole thing at certain points. He's learning how to use the new suit. That fight was a little for me, but all the other action stuff was just super. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just watching it going awesome.
Yeah, I was like, they were probably about 17 minutes or so into the episode, and that's when I looked at my, not my watch, but looked to see how the progress bar, like how far I was into the episode, because I'm like, this just opened up like just balls to the wall action, just like from the jump. And then when I looked and saw that I was like 17 minutes into the episode, it became clear to me, I'm like, this is gonna probably make up most of this episode, and I'm totally here for it. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Let's talk about the speech, because I think that was a big deal. I mean, we're kind of skipping past, I guess, the stuff that happened with Carly, and we talked about the Flag Smashers, but there's been a lot said about this speech that Sam gave. I both liked it and disliked it for its length. I disliked it because I felt at one point I was like, man, he's still talking. Like, this is a long fucking speech. But I also liked the way that it was, he wasn't repeating himself. he was taking it to the next level. Like every time he said something, and I really like that, because I think that this show, it did take a chance, and sometimes, like we talked about with the police incident in the street, it didn't come off as successful as we thought. With other things, with Isaiah, it did. I thought that this was a bit long, a bit speechy, but it was a speech. But I thought it was great because it was like in front of the world, and he was just kind of, it was like, I felt like he was challenging himself in the speech. It seemed like, he was getting lost in the ideas in a sense, but he kept on elevating it. I don't know. Overall, I thought it was pretty cool that they took the time to include this in the show. I was rather surprised they didn't cut it down more. What were your guys' reaction to this?
You want to go first, Michael? Want me to go? Because I have some interesting thoughts on it.
Well, you can go ahead, because I've already talked about it a little bit on the initial reaction anyway. And then Axel, the length of it was something I was going to talk about a little bit too. So you can go ahead.
I feel like this speech was the show talking to the viewers. And what I mean by that, because everything that he said in the speech was parallel to everything that's going on today in society.
Right.
And I think they did that intentionally. Like even the whole thing where he was basically talking about a lot of things he was talking about. He was talking about the issue with Black Lives Matter. He was particularly talking about this issue with kids in cages in this country. Because one of the things that struck me, what made me realize what he was talking about, was he kept saying, like, you guys have all the power. You senators, you people in politics have all the power, and you watch all this go on and you choose to do nothing. And he kept saying that. He kept saying things like that, like, hey, everything that's going on and all these people that are having problems, these people, because the flag smashers, you could compare them to the immigration situation in America and how these are people that kind of get left behind, kind of get neglected, kind of get pushed to the side, kind of get told that, hey, you don't have any rights or privilege to what's going on in this country. And Sam Wilson at this point in time was telling you, like, no, all these problems that are going on in this country, you can fix. You just choose not to fix these problems. And me saying this as a Black man in my position of power, I know that the bullseye can be put on me saying this, but at this point in time, I don't care. Because somebody's going to take the heat for this. It's going to be me. But you guys will have to fix these issues. And it's going to be taking more than just Captain America going around beating up people. When you guys have the power to solve these problems, I think that's kind of just the allegory for America. America has so many problems that we all say, hey, what's stopping you guys from solving this? And it's a whole bunch of red tape and political jargon and BS that stops all these problems from happening. Like, hey, you want police reform? You run the country. You run the government. What's stopping you from doing it? You want to stop the immigration issue in the country? You have all the power. You have all the money. And the thing that he kept harping on is, like, when you want things done in this country, in terms of the government and the senators and stuff like that, when it benefits them, they get it done quickly. But as soon as it comes to benefiting others, then they have a problem with it. I think that was a really cool, interesting way to do it, even if it may have been long-winded or not. But that point felt like they put that there to put out a message for not only the people who are on the show, but to the viewer themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I it was definitely that. Like, they were definitely trying to say, hey, we want to talk to the viewers and this is how we're going to do it. And I had a couple takeaways from the speech. That was one, your point about you guys have all the power and you don't do it. Like, that was one of the takeaways I had, and the other was about getting down to the root cause of why people dissent. And he talked about the flag smashers, and the best part of the speech to me was when he said something like, these people died to make their point. Like, have you ever given any thought as to why they would be willing to do something like that? And that was the most interesting part to me, because that's what we're dealing with here right now. You hear people say, how dare Colin Kaepernick disrespect the flag? And people don't think, like, okay, it's not about the flag. It's think, why is he doing this? Why is he kneeling? Why? And the point is to get to the root cause of the the reasons that these people are upset. And I feel like that's something that we really needed to get to. I liked that aspect of talking to the audience that way and making that point. But I also liked, there were times where they cut back and forth while he was speaking, and they had a really good shot of Isaiah and the grandson watching him. And I can't recall, but I feel like he looked like he was tearing up, like watching Sam on TV saying what he was saying. Yeah. So like, I thought that was a really cool shot. And then, like I said, the only kind of negative that I took away from it is I did feel like it was a little long, because it's one of those things where, like, how if you have like a gag on a show, right? And you guys are familiar with the Family Guy gag where Peter hurts his knee and goes like, like for a real long time. Like, and you have something like that where it's like, when you first see it, it's not that funny. Then it goes on for a really long time, and it starts to be funny for how long it's taking, and then it keeps going, and then it's not funny anymore. That's kind of what the speech was for me. It was kind of like, oh man, he's making some great points. I love how they're talking right to the audience, and they're telling us what's going on in this country. And it was like, it's still okay. It got to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe you could ease off the gas a little bit here. Like,
it almost feels like they were like, "Hey, we're glad you enjoyed the show, but we're going to hear everything we got to say right now."
Yes.
And if you want this show to continue, you have to listen to all these things.
Yeah, you're gonna get this enlightenment. Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And it was all good though. Like, I don't think that they misstep. I don't think that there was something when I rewatched it that I was like, oh wait, that's kind of hinky. No, I think that all the points he made were great. I thought that especially Delvin, I like what you said about the immigration thing, because that's an interesting point that I picked up on too. And it's part of the whole Flag Smashers, which is that they are going to move these 20 million people now, right? Like, it's going to happen, and the MCU is going to have to deal with this. And this is going to be a further tale of the post-blip world. And I like that. I think that's cool. But it also brings into account when people in our country say, why are people from Honduras coming here? Why are people from whatever South American or Central American country coming to America? This isn't their country. And they neglect to understand the effect that the United States has on their country, or the reason that they might be coming here is because of things that went on a higher level between countries and a world economy. And I think that I find it extremely interesting that the MCU is taking that on, because that's also something that Disney as a company gets a lot of shit on, which is that one world, like, the colors of Benetton. Disney wants everybody to be equal, but we're America. But a lot of people are like, but America's better, And we're sitting here going, no, like, let's listen to other countries. Let's talk to other people. Let's find out about their stories, why they did something. Even going back to 9/11, where, I mean, for 20 years, it's been anathema in this country to do the old thing, one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist. And I think it was pretty brave of Disney to bring that to the forefront of this series here, which is to actually talk about that, which is like, think about why a terrorist does what they do. They don't do it because they're just a stock bad guy that they were cast in that role.
Yeah.
They're actual human beings doing this. So I like the speech. I liked the format of it, where like the whole world is watching, I like the way they played into it. They never got around to clearing up the whole police incident, and they never brought it up again. But it did help Bucky get a little woke. In general, I like that Sam became Captain America in the way that he did in the show. I like the way they dealt with it. Mike, you made reference in your initial reaction when the person said, "That's Black Falcon." And then he said, "Oh, that's Captain America."
But that's me being me. I just don't like that kind of shit. Like, don't give me this fucking corny line written by an 8-year-old. Like, if I could say your line at the same time as you, no, come on. Like, I admit that's me doing the most. That's just me being me. But come on, man. Like,
but it was making a point in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was.
He can evolve and change, and he is Captain America now. So accept it, motherfucker. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's not black.
Not only that.
I was about to say, Devin's probably going to say the same thing I was about to say.
I think I am, because not only that, but comic books have a bad history of every black superhero. They just put black in front of his name, like Black Bolt, Black Panther. I think that was kind of making a joke about that and the pun about like, hey, we don't have to name every black superhero Black something. And I think that was kind of like, hey, maybe we need to stop doing that. Maybe like, hey, Falcon is just Falcon. He's not Falcon anymore. He's Captain America. Let's stop calling our black superheroes Black something. And
it's something different.
it's funny when you think about it, but it's not funny because it's reality. Like, it's like, hey, God, like me being a comic book fan for 30 plus years, it's kind of hard to be like reading comic books that reflect me and Mike for that matter. And every character, like, hey, there's Black Lightning, there's Black Bolt, there's this black superhero who's talking about jive turkeys and stuff like come on, like
gotta warn you. Before you pick this up, white people, we must warn you. It's a black person.
Exactly. Before you buy this book, the main hero is a black guy. Like, all right, we get it.
And I dig that. I think for me too, that's something that I in my own personal like struggle inside watching it and thinking maybe, and I said on the show, maybe he shouldn't be Captain America. He should be something totally new, right? Like, but that's why I like the way they did it and that they tied it into that, because that does make sense, you know, that he's Captain America now. And overall, I don't know, man. I think that they went for it. They weren't always successful, but I have to say, I was actually pretty surprised at the amount of time they gave these issues and where they were right about it too. I don't know if I expected that, you know, and I have to give them a little credit. I know a lot of people would say, hey, that's shitty. But when my son watches this, he gets the point. You know what I'm saying? And it means something to him. And I think that that's meaningful in today's day and age and in this world, that a kid can sit there, a little white kid can sit there watching it and say, hey, Dad, what is, you know, and we can have a discussion about it or talk about it, you know? Yeah. And they accomplished that. So kudos to them.
I agree. I do want to say this, and I thought it was interesting. I thought the Flag Smashers concept was interesting because I never really thought about, hey, all after the blip and all these people will come back, half the world comes back. The world is going to have huge, powerful overpopulation.
Yeah.
Like within what that was, 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Within those 5 years, people were born. People may have died. A lot of people were born and stuff like that. And also people have grown. But then you have all these people who coming back from the blip who didn't die. Like none of those people died during that time.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They were just kind of like in hibernation. They just all come back at one time. So I'm quite sure that became a huge logistical issue.
Yeah, when there was a line in the show that actually made it hit home for me, where I was like, "Oh shit, I hadn't considered it that way." But they said one of the politicians, I think, said something like, "What do you do when you come back and somebody else is living in your house?"
Yes,
and I was like, "Huh, yeah, like I could see that."
Actually, come back and they're fucking your wife. You know,
right, yeah.
What I'm saying, and your kids are calling him dad. Like people have to move on. I find that to be really fascinating. I mean, you know, I'm a huge fan of The Leftovers, which was the series.
Preach.
And, you know, the way that they dealt with issues like that. If you are interested in that, people, I tell you, watch The Leftovers, because they really get into all this kind of blip stuff. And I wonder if Man, I should do a Google search to see if anyone has ever asked anyone in the MCU, did they watch The Leftovers? Because I can't think of
That's a
another
great question.
dealt with that kind of dilemma, it really is fascinating. But the Flag Smashers are all those super soldiers are dead now, right? Zemo
Yes.
took all of them out. We didn't get to see what you had thought would happen, Delvin, which is the creation of the Thunderbolts, right?
Yes.
But
I still don't understand why he had to go to prison for that, by the way. I don't get that concept of like, hey, I need to be in prison to get these orders put out there. Like, no, you didn't. You could have just been on the run.
what was how do you feel about that, Delvin? Because that was something you were looking forward to them setting that whole thing up. How do you feel how that came out? And what do you think about the future for that?
I like that they're showing that Zemo still has reach in prison. I like that they're alluding to like, hey, Zemo's not working alone. He's working with some pretty powerful people. I like those aspects of it. I still don't understand why he had to go to prison unless there's another ulterior motive to that. Like maybe he's in prison to find his own group or something like that. But otherwise, I thought it was okay. I like the fact that they're like, hey, there's no more super soldiers. Let's get that idea right out the window right now. But overall, it's cool. Like I said, they tied up the story pretty well, but I think they could have done more with that. And I'm interested to see how far they go with developing the genius and intellect of Zemo and see if all these things tie together, maybe in the Captain America 4 or somewhere else down the line.
Yeah. I'd like to see him get his own series.
That would be interesting.
I love Daniel Bruhl. I think he's an amazing actor. And I think that I like what they did with Zemo this series. We never even got a chance to talk about that hour-long dance mix of him going like this, which I thought was fun. I like that kind of character. You know what I mean? And I think that he's unique because his reason for being, I feel, is fully fleshed out, and I can understand like where he's coming from. He speaks his mind. He's not just like nameless bad guy. So I thought it was pretty cool, and I liked the way a lot of the end of this episode was like a coda, like we got to wrap stuff up.
Yeah.
But we knew that was going to happen that way, and I kind of like that they took out all those super soldiers, except for that one dude, that kind of really good-looking dude who was always hanging out with Carly. I kind of felt like he might have had a future in the MCU. I thought his acting was pretty good, but other than that, they're we're not going to see. I think is that the end of the Flag Smashers. You think we're going to see them come back or anything like that?
100%.
Okay, cool.
I don't think we'll get the super soldier version of him, but I think the Flag Smashers will lead to like resistant groups and things like that. I think they will always be like a terrorist cell. May not be called the Flag Smashers, but they'll be offshoots of that group in terms of everything that happened based on like Carly right now. Many people will consider her a martyr.
True.
So I think that will lead to other groups kind of breaking out and doing their own thing. Because one of the things this episode and the last episode showed us that the Flag Smashers are a lot bigger than people thought they were.
Oh yeah, they're deep.
So it's not just like one group. They're like multiple groups in multiple countries and things like that. So they can easily expand on that and do a multitude of things with that. And be interested to see how they play off of that.
Yeah, and I like and they still have that the whole. I like the way that they tied in the apps and the virtual world into it, because I think that's something that they can expand upon as they go forward. One thing I did want to mention, as we're kind of, I don't know if you guys have much more to say, kind of wrapping things up, but we didn't get to see, I wanted to see Torres pop up and be like a new kind of guy, but I don't know why I like that dude, but I think show up, and I think Isaiah's grandson showing him again. I don't think that's the last time we're going to see these characters in the MCU.
I don't either. Yeah, I think we'll see them again.
Definitely, which is cool. You can think back. Hey, remember? Maybe they'll have their own series at some point, and I'm totally down with that. Do you have any final words, Mike, that you wanted to say, or anything else you want to be? We chatted about, I think, a lot of this episode.
Yeah, no, I didn't really have much to add. I do real quick on Zemo though. I do feel like Baron Zemo is currently a underutilized gem that the MCU is not quite using to its potential.
Yes.
There's so much they can do there, and he was underserved in this series. He was even a little underserved in Civil War, if we're being honest. But like, there's a lot of potential there, and a lot of room for them to work. And I'd really like to see them find a way to not just bring him back, but make him a little bit more prominent than he has been to this point. Again, I really like the actor. I really like the character, and I think especially because it feels like the direction of the MCU is going to be something with, like, we got the Secret Invasion stuff. We've seen a stronger emphasis on Skrulls. Now we're getting heavy into spies and espionage and covert shit like that. Like, it seems like that's kind of the direction we're going, throwing in a little terrorism in there too. And these are all things that I feel like they could really utilize Zemo in to a very high level. So maybe we'll get like that Thunderbolt show still, and he can be in that. But yeah, I think he's been a little underutilized to this point, and not just underutilized like, oh, they could be using him more. Like, they should be using him more. Like, and they should be giving him a little bit more to do than I think they did in this show. I thought he was going to be much more prominent in this show than he was.
I think his character is more of a convention bad guy than Carly is. Truth be told, I think that he has more layers to him, and I think the way he manipulates the system kind of fits the theme of this show. Carly didn't feel like a bad guy. She felt like almost like a troubled kid.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she was symbolic of the belief that these kids. You're right about that. She was less singularly focused. They tried to do it, but I think every time they did, it got pulled back to like the worldwide organization aspect of it. And that's just that in the end, I think. I mean, it might come down to me too, just to the actors. Like, I just think Daniel Bro is amazing. Like, that guy is so much fun. He's a great actor. He's like just like a classical kind of character actor that I feel like he could do anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Great actor. All right, guys. Well, I don't know. Anybody have anything else they want to say before we get going?
Good.
So let's do our little goodbyes here. Mike, what's your final word on the season and this experience?
I think overall it's a very solid entry into what is going to be, I think, an excellent small screen version of the MCU. I think it, by and large, I had my issues with the first few episodes of WandaVision. There are some issues that I had here and there, nothing big with this show, but by and large, I'd say they're 2 for 2 so far on their foray into the small screen. And I think, like, based on what they've done so far and based on what the properties that they have coming out, like, I'm super, super excited to see some of these upcoming projects. So I enjoyed the show. I'm going to enjoy coming back to do Loki. I'm sure Loki, I feel like Loki has the potential to be the best of these three. So, like, I'm really, really excited for the Loki show. And yeah, that's all I got, man.
Fantastic. Delvin.
Kind of agree with Mike. I think this is a great start to the universe, and I especially like the fact that we're getting a feel for what these shows in this universe is going to be in terms of the TV universe of it. We're going to get casual cameos from other characters in the universe, much like the MCU films, but they're going to tell their own story and build their own world based off of what the MCU gave us in terms of, like, hey, this is the world of Marvel movies now. And these characters are living into it and surviving into it. And we're going to get the intricate details of that. And I think I like hearing the little tidbits of things that we normally wouldn't see in a 2.5-hour movie. So I think I like where it's going. I agree. I'm excited for Loki. I may be more excited for What If, because What If is something on a whole new level in terms of how that show is going to change how it's one of the shows that's attached to the universe, but it's not. And that excites me because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do it. Like they can tell whatever story they want to. What if? And that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one.
Can't wait. That was one of my favorite comic books. It's
Mine
funny.
too.
I was obsessive about that. And a lot of times I didn't know a lot of the other Marvel stuff because I was more into the DC stuff. But oh man, What If is going to be super fun.
Yeah.
Yes, super fun. Well, guys, this has been fantastic. Delvin, it's been great having you on for 2 of these 6 episodes. I'm very much looking forward to doing all of Loki with both of you. I want to thank everybody who sent in feedback. We didn't always have an opportunity to get to all of it, but it's really great to have people involved with the show, and we really appreciate it. Shout out to Cufflinks. Go to cufflinks.com/DVR. We got the great socks going to Joanne. We got a tie going to Scott, and we got a pin that's going to Glenn. So check all that out. Thank you so much, everyone, for the downloads, the likes, the subscribes. This has just been a really fun experience, and it's been great talking about it with people. I have to echo everything you guys said. Another great season. I'm super happy. I was excited when they first said they were going to do Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this, but now they're really doing it. And no offense to those shows, because those were fun. And a lot of people like the Netflix shows too, and that's great. But for me, this is finally, they're really tying everything in with the film unit. And it's just a whole lot of fun. And it's great to watch with your kids too. You know, like my son loves The Mandalorian and he really enjoys the action in this one. WandaVision was a little over his head, but that was a different kind of show.
Yeah.
They have the time to do it. And Loki looks like we're going to have a lot of fun because it looks crazy already. So thank you everyone for downloading, subscribing, liking, giving feedback. We really appreciate it. Have a great night, day, afternoon, morning, whatever the fuck it is. Peace out.
Peace.